back to the Zero to Here podcast. I am your host, Denny Dumas. Producer Carl, what up?
How's it going?
Super excited to have our first guest ever. And for me, this gentleman sitting across the table from me, this is a pretty exciting and a big spot to fill. I'm pretty pumped to have Shaun here, and I knew it was going to be Shaun from the beginning when I started the podcast because I respect him so much, and we have a ton of awesome business conversations together, and I'm just looking to pick his brain a little bit more today. But let me first introduce him, Shaun Francis. What's going on, Shaun?
What's going on, my man, Denny? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Just a little background info on Shaun. Shaun is a residential mortgage broker in Greater Vancouver. I'm going to let him kind of give us an intro to his professional career. But I wanted to just describe a couple situations of why I love and respect Shaun so much, both as a friend, but also as a entrepreneur himself. Number one's not necessarily the most serious professional reason that I love him and respect him, but he is, and if you're watching on YouTube, you're not getting the full effect today, but if you're on the podcast, I'll explain it to you. Shaun is probably, if not the best dressed dude in the real estate game, and that's not a joke. He most of the time is wearing a suit, and I was a little disappointed that he's just wearing a jacket and a collared shirt today, but best dressed dude in real estate in Greater Vancouver. Yes, I'm going on the record saying that. But two, when I was early into my career, Shaun and I kind of connected pretty early on, actually. He was a mortgage broker at one of the big five banks. And we'd worked together on a few things, but there was one specific deal that I remember very clearly. I had a listing of a condo in New West. Do you remember this one?
I think I do. I think I know where this is going.
In a 90s building. The building was pretty good, but it wasn't fully rain screened. The buyer's mortgage broker couldn't close the deal. So a day before subject removal, I think it was a day, maybe it was 2 days.
Yeah.
It was short notice.
Short window.
Yeah. Maybe it was 2 days. So the buyers couldn't get financing. Their broker couldn't figure out a lender to take it to. So they were not going to be able to remove subjects, and the deal was going to collapse. I asked the buyer's agent if I could send them to my broker. And they said, sure. So I sent them Shaun's information. Shaun turned around the deal in, it was a ridiculous amount of time. It was like I said, less than 2 days, and got financing, and they were able to remove subjects and complete a deal. So for me as a realtor, I value and respect the relationship of people in the industry that are super reliable and are going to do whatever it takes to close a deal and do whatever it takes to provide the best customer service as possible. So that, like, since that day, I think that was in 2015, but since that experience with Shaun, I've always had a ton of respect for him, both professionally and we've grown to be friends as well. But I will give the mic over to you for a few minutes. I'd love to hear just a quick summary of your professional career to this date.
Well, thanks for having me again, Denny, and I consider you a great friend and also a business ally. So thank you for that. A couple things I wanted to jump in. I wanted to jump in with a thank you first, and then also I want to talk a little bit about myself and my business and whatnot, right? But I want to say again, thank you again, because, you know, when I transitioned to become a mortgage broker, it was a scary thing because I came from the bank and I came from the broker side of things as a BDM, but I was a broker. And, you know, they always say being a broker is very difficult because you have to get your own business yourself and you have to self-source your business. And the very first deal, once Denny heard I was going to become a mortgage broker, the very first deal that I ever got was from Denny, right? He sent me the opportunity to work with him on a deal. And it was a great deal, and I was able to fund that deal. And I always believed in myself, right? But like it made a difference that knowing that Denny believed in me. And at that time, Denny was doing very, very well for himself and top producing team. And he, I'm sure, had countless of mortgage brokers trying to work with him, but he thought about me. So I really want to say thank you for that. I appreciate that, the loyalty And you know what? I will be your guy from the day I die, right? So thank
For
you for
sure.
that.
I appreciate that, but I also want to say that the reason that the deal went to you is because of how much confidence I have in you, man. It's not it wasn't a favor at all. Don't ever think of it that way.
Yeah, it
It
wasn't a
was
favor, right? But it was appreciated, especially at that state of you know, first deal, first
yeah,
opportunity, right? And you knew what I was capable of doing, right? But it's still something to be said about you know, giving me that opportunity, right? So
for sure.
it means a lot. So now here we are. Fast forward to here we are right now.
Yes.
I'm a principal and senior mortgage consultant at Bespoke Lending Solutions. Our headquarters or head office is out in Burnaby, Gilmore Drive.
Yeah.
Gilmore by Gilmore SkyTrain Station, Henning Drive, in Burnaby by Brentwood Mall. Myself and two other business partners, we started the company in 2018 in January, and I'm happy to report we're thriving. We have about 14 team members at the office right now, and it's growing steadily, right? So it's pretty cool when you have an idea in your mind and you're able to kind of put it together, and you know, you're able to recruit team members on your vision, right? And the whole idea with a bespoke, is, you know, bespoke is the word. It means customized, right? I'm sure you've heard of the term bespoke suits, right? um, Bespoke means customized, and we were calling it Bespoke Lending Solutions because it's customized mortgage solutions tailored to the client's specific needs.
I love that.
So that was kind of always the vision, right? We wanted to kind of be the upper tier when it comes to advice, comes to reliability, comes to financial solutions for clients,
Yeah.
right? And then bespoke is just because you have upper tier advice, but you have to tailor it to the people's specific situations. Be it your first time home buyer, you don't need to know all the ins and outs, right? All you want to know is what my payments are. You know, will I be able to afford this? What is my exit strategy? What's my penalty to get out of it, right? And then you tailor it to your higher end clients that have multiple properties, 2, 4, 5, 6 properties, and they need to be able to have cash flow to get qualified for their financing, right? So
Yeah.
the whole vision for that was bespoke lending solutions tailored to people's specific needs. And then obviously we consider ourselves, we do like to dress nice, and I appreciate the shout out. And unfortunately, I didn't have my suit on today, right? But I do have, if you guys can see it, the funky socks right
Yes,
here
love
tonight,
it.
right? So, but you know, all kidding aside, like we do consider ourselves the suits, you know, of the mortgage broker world, right? So we kind of play on that, and everyone needs to have a little bit of identifier in the market, and that's where we want to be, right?
I
And
like that.
you know, people are gravitating towards. So
Give me, I know, I mean, I know a lot about your background, but give me the Coles Notes version of how you got here. That's like one of the big things for me, and a big reason for starting the podcast is for people to share their stories,
yeah.
how they got here, share the grind. But maybe give me a 2 to 3 minute little clip of how you got from childhood Shaun Francis to mortgage broker leading a big team of 14
Well,
agents.
I don't know if 2 or 3 minutes is good enough, but we'll see what we can do here. You know, my background is SFU grad,
Yeah.
and communications and business was my background. And then I have my master's in business and my MBA as well. And I went to SFU, and I got on my what was it called? It was a internship program through SFU, and I started working for the bank in 2004. I always thought, or I wanted to end up in banking, and I wanted to be in financial services and marketing, and that was kind of the goal, right? I wanted to be in a big company.
So you were thinking investments originally?
I was thinking sort of marketing
Okay.
or advertising,
Yeah.
right? And I ended up getting an internship co-op placement for the Royal Bank at the time, and I was able to parlay that and work there for 8 months, and was a great experience. And then I was able to work part time at the bank while I went to school and finished my undergrad.
What was your first job after the internship with the bank? What position?
It was account manager. So I
Okay.
started as a co-op student as an account manager, and I came back to the bank as an account manager.
Okay.
And that was actually very, very prestigious at the time, because it was really hard to be able to get trained to be an account manager, right? Because you needed to be able to be available to be on call, right?
Yeah.
But they had trained me for the last 8 months, and then they held me in a part-time position while I went to school part-time. So it was perfect. I worked there on the weekends, Saturday, Fridays, and Mondays. And you know, the clients knew me, the staff knew me, so it was really it was a perfect opportunity for myself. Did a lot of learning in that role at the time.
What's the next kind of progression after the account manager role?
So at the bank, obviously, there's different levels. You kind of basically do about 2 years in every role, and you kind of look to move up and gain more experience. And I started as an account manager for 2 years, and I was a senior account manager for another 2 years. Then I was a business account manager for 2 years, and then you parlayed that into I parlayed that into the mortgage specialist role. Initially, I actually wanted to go from account manager straight into commercial banking because that was a sexy job at the time, right? Set commercial banking, and that's what everyone wanted to do, right? But what I soon learned in the bank is, what you want and timing, it's all a combination of things, right? Like opportunities, area, timing, and being connected and all those things, right? And so there was a time and place for everything. And at that time, the best opportunity besides commercial banking was small business.
Okay.
And so if I can ever trace the role that kind of prepared me to be where I am right now as a mortgage broker and a business owner, I would give the credit to that small business role, because that role was very extremely demanding at the time. The pay was not as good as it probably should be at the time, but the life lesson was invaluable, right? The reason why I say that is because I had to wear so many multiple hats, right? We had to reach out proactively, reach the clients. I had to call clients and try to get them into the branch, and I had to go out to their businesses. So I would do field trips out to their houses. I remember one time I had a client, he was a farmer. So I went out to his farm. He was a chicken farmer. So I went out to his chicken farm. I went to the barn, and I was in the barn there with all the chickens. There was hundreds of chickens in there, and I was like to myself, what am I doing out here, right? But like I said to myself, I'm there to develop a relationship with this client and, to see their business. And these self-employed individuals love talking about their business. Totally. And they're passionate about it, right? So I was able to kind of form a connection to those individuals. I started to see how I can develop relationships with people, right? It's like, be interested about them, ask great questions, add value to them, right? And that's all started when I was a business account manager at the bank. They used to give me a calendar, and they said, make sure there's no white spaces in the calendar, right? So I was always trying to book meetings, right? And if I wasn't getting any walk-in business, I would go find business, right? And, there was like a stack ranking. You had to do a certain amount of insurance, a certain amount of Visa cards, some amount of business operating line of credits, right? And so you were constantly being pulled in every direction, right?
Yeah.
And that was a great opportunity for me to kind of grow. And then you would analyze your book of clients and who were your most profitable versus your unprofitable ones, and ways you can add value to the ones and move them up the profit chain, right? So that was, to me, the instrumental force to kind of put me where I am, the trajectory where I am now.
Would you say was that client interaction relationships that you were able to build in that role, was that something that you were comfortable with, or did you have to kind of go outside your comfort zone at that point?
It was a funny story, Denny. When I was a business account manager, there was a point where my sales manager at the time didn't think I was going to make it in the role. They're like, do you want to be here? And I was shocked, because what I ended up happening is I was a trainee. And what ended up happening was I was paired up with another business account manager, and I would do some of their junior work for them. What was ending up happening is I would start the work, and then I would not finish it, and I would jump onto the next project. And then I was thinking that I was doing something, but I wasn't. I was doing it like half-assed, yeah. Right? And I didn't know what I was doing, but I slowly learned, right? And that's a great example of being thrown into something and not really knowing. But if you kind of, and then he told me, he's like, you know what, I don't know if this is for you. And I kind of was like aha moment, right? Yeah. I ended up going on vacation. I think 2 weeks later, I had a scheduled vacation. We were in Spain. And when I came back, I had a chance to reflect, and my battery was charged. I was focused, and I hit the ground running, and I got my own area after that. And, it was great going forward from there, right? But that was an opportunity for me to kind of like evaluate, focus, and then you kind of execute on the objectives that was at hand.
Even just to touch on that and kind of getting outside your comfort zone, I kind of do that on purpose now, and I guess it comes with a certain level of professional growth that you just I describe myself as obsessively wanting to grow all the time.
Absolutely.
Whether that's personal, professional, fitness wise, whatever it is. But even just like a recent example, I'm not super comfortable talking in front of people, in front of larger groups of people. Um, and so I don't know where this comes from, but I'm like, okay, I want to get more comfortable. So I'm going to just do it. So I got a call from like we do really well in New Westminster. And so any new developments that come into New West, we often get phone calls from developer representatives just saying, you want to come meet for a lunch? We're going to have 20 local agents come and we're going to pick your brain on what price points should be, what types of units people want, et cetera, et cetera. So I always say no to them because it's a waste of time. It's no benefit for me. I waste 2 hours of my day. I get a free lunch for $20 and go on my way. I'm just helping them.
Sure.
No benefit to me. So for whatever reason, I'm just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And as I'm walking, this is a few weeks later, as I'm walking into the lunch, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to be the first one to talk at this meeting. I don't know why. I want to put myself in uncomfortable situations so that down the road, I'm more comfortable in more situations.
I 100% agree with you. It's like, I think we can all relate to this where there's something that's super uncomfortable, but it's absolutely so satisfying when you do something uncomfortable and you walk away from it. And then you're like, that wasn't so bad.
Totally.
That was the bomb. I could do this. I conquered my fear. Mm-hmm. Like you lived life, right? Like you feel like you've lived life. I remember I woke up one day, and it's not to say I'm like an Iron Man or anything like that. I did a mini triathlon, and it was a small thing. I think it was like a 10K bike, 5K run, and like a 800-meter swim, right? Yeah. But I just woke up one day and I did that. I trained for like a month or two with one of my good buddies, and I did it. And I told my brother, he's like, "You're doing that?" I'm like, "Yeah." And then it was an amazing experience because at the very end, when I crossed the line, I was just like, I thought I saw I conquered, right? And it's just like, it's wonderful to be able to put yourself in these situations, uncomfortable, but maybe not too uncomfortable, but be able to walk away from that. And then that allows you to build to new levels of new things, right? Mm-hmm. And it can also translate into different aspects of your life, maybe even to dating, for example, right? You see that beautiful woman in the coffee shop and you want to approach her or whatever, right? But like, you always get the nerves, right? But like, if you just kind of put yourself out there and say hello, and obviously she shoots you down or whatever it may be, it doesn't matter because you did what you wanted to do, which is you wanted to approach her, you wanted to say hello. But how they react is not your concern. It's just you putting yourself out there, living your true life, living your authentic life. Mm. And then the right energy, the right person will then come back to you when it's appropriate. And it's just a numbers thing because it's only a matter of time before the good things start coming back to you, right?
Over the last couple of years, I've figured out a lot about who I am. And I'm super excited about where I am now because of all these things I learned about myself in the last couple of years. But I've been able to kind of put into words these philosophies that go on in my head, but I haven't really been able to articulate them very well before. And one of what you just said is, one of them that I think about all the time is, what's my other option? So when I have a situation, like to use your example about approaching a girl in a bar or a coffee shop, if I don't do anything, I'm losing no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
If I do something, I have a chance at winning, right?
Absolutely.
And it's also going to make me feel more confident, more comfortable for the next situation.
You have more to gain than lose because if it's like hitting a home run, right? Like either you stand at the plate and the strike goes through and then you're out, right? Or you strike, you swing and it's a strike and you're out anyways. But if you connect, right, and you hit that home run or grand slam, you win the game, right?
Totally.
Like, and so that's life, right? Like you're gonna die anyways, so it's like might as well do something and have a story to tell, right?
Might as well hit a bunch of home runs.
Absolutely.
Because I don't know the story, but I want to know, like, how did you get the mortgage position, or like kind of what events evolved from you going from more account manager employee really at a bank to more of a self-employment position as a mortgage specialist?
Yeah, that's a fair enough question. Like I feel my journey at the bank was commercial banking. That was always the goal, right? Okay. But for whatever reason, it wasn't, the timing wasn't ready, and they didn't have any positions available, right? But then I was getting tired of the small business role, right? The money was capped, right? And I wanted an opportunity to grow financially, right? And to be able to be out of the office, right? Like my personality is, I like to be able to like walk in and make things happen, and let things happen. And when you're in the branch, you're kind of restricted to 9 to 5 and all those things that go along with it, right? And I remembered, I think it was, we get a small bonus once a year, right? And by the time that you get your bonus and you pay your taxes on it, they take the taxes off of it, and you pay your transfer to your visa bill to pay all the debts that you're accumulating because you knew you were getting your bonus. All the money was gone, right? And I needed an avenue or something that can give me more income potential, right? And I was torn between commercial banking and mortgage specialist, right? But then when the mortgage specialist position came up, they said to me, Shaun, you'd be a great mortgage specialist with 100% commission. And that was absolutely very terrifying at the time, right? I was like, I think it was 27, one of the youngest mortgage specialists at the time, 26, 27, 28, one of those ages. And I said to myself, the whole principle that you just mentioned, I said to myself, what is the alternative? Let's just say I become a mortgage specialist and it doesn't go well, and then I flunk out. Then I'll just go work for another bank, right? That doesn't matter, right? Because I'm young enough. I was just getting a small mortgage. I was a single guy at the time. There was no downside. Like, what is the worst that could have happened, right? But I said to myself, what happens if I do well and I start earning the kind of income that I've heard the mortgage specialists can make, right? That would change my life, right?
Totally.
And sure enough, I took the plunge, right? And I did like 17 million my first year, which was absolutely phenomenal. Like, I basically doubled my income or tripled my income at the time, in the span of 1 year, right? So I said to myself, what is my consequence, right? And so that was my first experience, right? It's like baby steps, right? Because obviously, it was 100% commission. And I quick little, like, if I can go back, a quick little story as well too is, you know, um, my background is Caribbean, and my parents was on the conservative side of things, right? And my mom was saying when I was graduating from high school, she goes, "Why don't you go into the trades? They pay well, they can get good pension and all those things." But I said, "But mom, I don't really want to do that, right? Like, that doesn't excite me, right? But you know what? That's good. It's good and safe, right?" And I always said to myself, I don't want to just be safe. I want more, right? And at that time, the mortgage specialist role was more, right? But then even then, after like periods of years of being a mortgage specialist, I wanted more, and we can kind of parlay into that to the next phase of things, right? But
Yeah.
that was my first forte in believing my inner gut, my inner voice, believing in myself, giving it a go, and it working out well, right? And so I was really happy to do that role, and then kind of go from there.
One of my, like, just on what you talked about, one of my other, for lack of a better term, philosophies is I'm terrified of being mediocre.
Yeah.
And not that I'm criticizing anyone that has a regular 9 to 5 or, whatever. Just with my mindset and with the ambition that I have, it means I'm failing if I'm mediocre. So I, I have these crazy ambitions, and I know what it takes to get there, and I'm willing to not, like, I'm willing to sacrifice other things. So I, I talk a lot about work-life balance, and we'll get into that later, but just, I think it's a subjective topic that everyone has a different perspective on, and you just need to figure out what makes you happy. And for me, and I know you're in the same boat, it's, we have some big ambitions, and we're going to work our butts off together.
Totally. Like, it's I guess it's like the mindset is, how do I put this? The mindset is like, what's the alternative, right? And mediocre, I like to kind of look at it as, this is like, could you live with yourself? Like, or could you, like, at the end of the day, I'm sure everyone's seen these posts on Instagram or whatever. It says like, when you're on your deathbed, like, what do you want people to say about you? What do they want to say? Like, did this man live, or did Denny or did Shaun live his life to the fullest potential, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're have your alone moments and you're reflecting on how you lived your life, like, you want to be like, I had no regrets, right? Like, I want to look at you right in the eye, and anyone who's my friend, they would know, like, Shaun has lived his life to the 100% best way he possibly can, right? And that's what it is. We only have one life, right? And you should make your decisions accordingly, right? And if you start from day one making decisions with no regrets, then cumulatively you'll be in a great space. But if you start off from a younger age making decisions that are safe or whatnot, then it's kind of like hard to go back, because if you kind of put yourself in a certain trajectory, it's hard to reverse it. It's not impossible,
Yeah.
but it does make things a lot more difficult, right?
Getting back into like your progression through the bank, um, moving into the role of mortgage specialist, was there, I know that you talked about being excited about the opportunity for, more income, but also working the hours that you want to work. I did a quick stint at a financial institution, didn't last long, but one of the big things for me is that I felt like I was working harder than other people in my position, but regardless of whether I just showed up or I worked my ass off for 8 or 9 hours a day, your income is capped, right?
Correct.
Whereas I love the idea and opportunity of whatever I'm putting into it, I'm going to get out of it eventually. But what I'm getting at more is, did you ever have any negative thoughts moving from a salaried position into a mortgage role where it's 100% commission? Was there ever a self-doubt? Was there, like, how did that first year in that mortgage position go?
I think the biggest self-doubt or like the biggest negative thoughts was initially making the decision.
Yeah.
Should I do this? Should I not do this? Right.
What would have held you back
Of making the decision?
Yeah.
If, for example, I had like a wife and kids or something like that, or some sort of financial constraint,
Sure.
there was other people depending on, if I had parents that were depending on my income or whatever, right? Because you don't know when you go self-employed or if you go commission, if you're going to be able to generate a certain amount of income within a certain amount of period of time to satisfy your expenses at the time, right? Yeah. So that would probably be the biggest thing. And then also too, the feeling of failure to people who you respected, right? There's something to be said about telling your coworkers who you are like aligned with, right? Who are the same level as you, you're doing something that they're not doing, right? And then the look that they're giving you, right? Like, you're going to do what? Like, and then it's like they want to do it as well too, but they're not comfortable doing that. And then they start that mentality starts seeping into your mentality, right? So that can kind of like play into it, right? But, so I kind of combated that feeling of, what happens if I embarrass myself for biting more than I can chew? I'm not ready yet. I'm young. Like, there's people who are doing this job and then their 30s and 40s, and who am I as a 27-year-old trying to be a mortgage specialist, right? So I said to myself, I found a reason or a way to combat that by saying to myself, if it doesn't plan out, at least I would have said to myself, at least I tried, and then I can always go back to doing what I was doing at another bank. So that was kind of like my trick that I played in my mind internally to allow me to feel comfortable to walk off the ledge. Mm-hmm. And then once I walked off the ledge, I floated and I was killing it. So then all that was like in the past. So it didn't even matter. There was no negative thoughts about it after I made the decision.
Knowing how motivated a guy you are, do you even hear that noise though? Like, and what I mean by that is when coworkers are talking about, ooh, Shaun, that's a big risk moving into a 100% commission role. Do you even hear that?
That's a good question. Maybe, but I don't factor that, right? Because once I make, I operate differently. Like, once I make a decision on something, then I just roll with it, right? Like, they might think that, but that doesn't even enter into my psyche, right? Like, once I'm like, it's like I stay in my lane, right? Like, yeah. I got my blinders on. I got to do what I got to do, and like, just get out of my way or hop on my train, and then let's do this together. If not, then that's it, right? So that didn't even factor into my decision. I feel with me is making the commitment to do it, and then once I'm committed to doing it, then it always goes the direction I want it to go.
For me, one of the biggest things that I respect about myself is that I literally do not give a shit what other people think about me.
Yeah.
And a couple good examples of that is, and so that's where my question comes from. Are you even hearing the negative feedback? And when I told my family I was getting into real estate, this is 2014. I had a conversation with my brother, and my brother says, it's a super competitive industry. Are you sure? Like, I don't think that's the right move. And in my head, I literally don't even hear it. And obviously I'm in a conversation with him. I'm hearing what he's saying, but it doesn't affect my mindset at all.
Interesting. Like, so, okay, that the way you position, does people's comments affect me? No, but I guess like I care about what people. I guess I care what my clients think about me more, right?
Yeah.
Like how I'm being perceived by people who I want to work with, like maybe like how like people who I respect, right? Like it's, and then I feel like it's like I don't operate in a vacuum, right? But I do well with feedback, right? Because then it kind of helps me recalibrate what I'm doing, right? It helps me fine tune or tweak what needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to make your decision based on all the information presented, and then you execute based on that, right? Because if you keep on waiting to hear from feedback from people, you'll just be in a circle, just going around and around and around and around.
I think
right?
that's a fine line though, because the way I think about it is, I am who I am. In my opinion, our team does as good a job or better in terms of residential real estate, marketing residential real estate in Greater Vancouver. So the feedback is always encouraged. But is it going to change who I am and how I approach a client? Probably not, because I know that we're very good at it. And it's the same with like, I'm not going to change my personality to adjust to a client that doesn't like something about our business.
Okay, well,
Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you're saying, but my question to you is, then where's your feedback loop? Like, where are you? Because, like, sure, fair enough, like it's working right now, but let's say something happens in the market, and the reality is something like the reality of how you do business in 2018 is going to be different than how you do business in 2025, right? So
For sure.
2025 rolls around, and you're trying to operate like how you were operating in 2018. When are you going to be able to adjust your style to be able to be competitive in the marketplace? Like, what is your
But
feedback
that's the
loop?
part that,
What is your feedback loop?
that's the exciting part though, is one of my other philosophies, Shaun. This is a good one. This obsessive desire to grow. And so like, is AI going to be coming into real estate one day?
Maybe.
Is virtual reality going to be coming into real estate one day? I'm fucking excited about that stuff. That's super cool.
Right.
Be able to send an email to someone to put on their glasses at home and walk through a property. That'd be so cool. So I think we, in terms of our team, are pretty good at staying on top of technology, and we're much farther ahead than most in Greater Vancouver. But more so in terms of like, I'm just talking about feedback, and like it's always welcomed, and I'm excited to hear what people think about us. But is that going to change the way I do business or change who I am? Definitely not.
Oh, like, I feel the same way. Like at the end of the day, how do I say it? Like at the end of the day, you have to live your life and like be your authentic self, and then that's how you'll be. What I'm trying to say is be a version of your authentic self,
For
and
sure.
be open to like slight changes. For example, like I had a argument or a healthy argument with a friend, and he said that dressing up too much for your clients is intimidating to them and to make them not want to work with you, because if I'm suited up all the time and they're not the kind of client that likes to wear suits, then they'll turn them off, right? And I'm like, well, that's fine, but if that's how they are going to be, I'm going to be who I am, and I rather err on a level that I'm more comfortable with, that demonstrates respect for myself and my industry. And if someone doesn't resonate with that, that's fine, but they can't judge me for being who I am, right? As long as you're being authentic within your space,
For sure.
then I think it's gonna end well, right?
100% on board with that. Okay, I'm going to come back to the switch from working at a financial institution to going off on your own.
Okay.
But this is something that I'm trying to explore with anyone that I have on the show, and it's finding out where that entrepreneurial gene, where that entrepreneurial mindset comes from. So, is there any like? For me, I had a bunch, but are there any big goals that you had as a kid that you like learned this work ethic from, or someone in your life as a child that kind of showed you or provided that, for lack of a better term, work ethic? Like where does that come from?
I think all kids, like for the most part, like love sports athletes, right?
Yeah.
Actors and business people, right? Can't say I'm a huge Trump fan now, right? But like in the past, that was someone that I kind of said, oh hey, he's a business mogul, right? That's so cool. He owns, hotel buildings with his name on it and drives in fancy helicopters and cars or whatever, right? And he must be doing something right, right? And then obviously like the swag that comes with like a sports athlete, right? The confidence, right? Being able to like command, walk into a room and command people's attention. Or if you're like a Michael Jordan, you walk into the arena and everyone's on their feet trying to get a look at him, right? So I feel like the common trait of anyone who's successful in business or in life is they have the ability to influence people, right?
For sure.
Be it like subconscious, like at a lower level, just by their presence or what they say, right? Like Obama, right? Like he was able to be a great orator. He was able to have these speeches and makes people feel a certain way, right? So if you're gonna be in sales, or if you're like, I don't. Maybe you can let me know what your feedback is. Have you ever seen anyone who's successful in business that's an introvert? Like, is that possible, or I don't know? Is that?
I'm going to answer that question. Before I forget, I had the opportunity to see Obama live. I don't know if I ever told you that. It was pretty cool.
Actually, you didn't tell me.
Yeah, I was at University of North Dakota for a year.
Okay.
Out of high school.
Right.
And he came and spoke. I guess it was when he was running the first time. He came and spoke at our stadium.
Senator, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he came and spoke at the stadium, and I remember really clearly, and maybe just because it was the state that I was in and the type of people that came to the event, but the amount of confidence and respect that the crowd had for him over who he was running against, Hillary, was mind blowing to me. People were just like in awe of this guy, and he's a great public speaker,
Yeah.
and he really commands the room, but people just respected him. And then Hillary came on and people were talking and like didn't really care. But again, maybe it was the type of people that I was around, but I remember it really clearly how cool it was to see how he just dominated the room when he was speaking.
And that is something that I respect, and that's why the whole idea with bespoke lending is just like you dress a certain way. Like I'm sure there's scientific studies on it, right? If you put a man in a suit and a man wearing a t-shirt and jeans, and were to instruct a group of people to do something, you're going to get more compliant people when the guy in the suit is saying something to the guy that is wearing the jeans and t-shirts, and you have no idea their education level or their qualifications. It just means it's like it's a non-verbal cue, right? And then once you take that up a notch with their stature, right? Commanding presence, hand gestures, right? Or their height or their voice, right? And their directions, right? Then you're taking it to another level. So if you combine those, that was Obama, right? He would look at you in the eye and he would point, and and he would make you feel a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And those are, in my opinion, the individuals that gets people's attentions, and those are the people that do good business, right?
I feel like that was a bit of a cheap shot, Sean.
What are you talking about? What?
I'm sitting over here wearing a t-shirt and jeans. You're sitting over there looking fancy. I guess back to being a kid. Any like big goals? Did any like ideas of working for yourself as a kid? Or like big goals that you've worked towards? Like for me, this probably came from being in a family of 6 kids and the 5th of 6 kids. So I had 4 older siblings that were good at sports. And for me, it was basketball. I was just ridiculously obsessed. And I had this goal from as long as I can remember, when I was 4 or 5 years old, to play in the NCAA. And literally my entire childhood was shifted towards playing in the NCAA.
Wow.
And again, I don't know where like that mindset or work ethic comes from. Maybe it's seeing my older brothers do well in sporting events, but for whatever reason, that was the goal. And I think that has been a huge part of how I've transitioned that kind of work ethic mindset over to professionalism into my career.
That's funny you should mention that, because I'm a big fan of basketball. I played a little bit, but I think my first number one sport was track and field. And
Really?
A little trivia for you.
I didn't know that.
My name was the Jamaican Jet. Yes.
That's amazing.
To this day, I still have records from, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old boy records in the 100 meter, 200 meter, and long jump, triple jump. But Absolutely. I think I got a lot of my confidence as a young boy from track and field, from being able
Totally.
to, they're like, people will look at me, and this is what people said to me. It's not like I'm telling, like, this is people was, oh, you're Sean Francis, and then like I want to race against you, and they would like run away from me, like I was like, like, I don't want to say, but I was like a god almost, right? Like they just wouldn't want to even compete against me, right? And where I'm going with this is I found something that can give me confidence, and then I was able to kind of like understand, if you take a talent and you kind of beat on your craft and kind of work on it, you go certain places. And it's a good lesson because I was quite fast, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then injuries kind of took my track career a little bit. I had bad knees and started slowing down, right? But what I realized is the individuals that weren't catching up to me in track, the individuals who couldn't beat me when I was 9, 10, 11, 12, started beating me when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, right? And what was happening is they were constantly improving and growing and developing, and I wasn't putting as much um, focus on my training,
Yeah.
because I had raw natural talent when I was younger, but when I was getting older, I wasn't training as much. And then eventually it kind of got to the point where, am I going to be committed to this sport as I needed to be? And I wasn't prepared to do that. And I exited, and it was a good experience, right? But like it taught me at that point, I was like, okay, you can have as much talent, but you need to marry that with work ethic. And at one point there was something called the BC Summer Games, which is similar to the Olympics, right? And in preparation for the BC Summer Games, we were doing 2-a-days. So we would get to the track at 10 o'clock in the morning, train for 2 hours, and come back again at 4 or 5 o'clock for another session of training, right? And that was the level of training that you need to do, not just for a couple weeks or a few months before the Summer Games. You need to do that for 10 months, right? To be competitive, right? And that's when I started to realize, is like, you needed to be able to be dedicated and focused, right? And that was a lesson learned at a young age for myself.
Do you think that feedback originally when you were a kid, and this is like elementary school,
This was when
early high school?
This is like grade 9, 10.
Do you think that like, for whatever reason, when I was a kid, and now as an adult and going through it professionally, I understand it and can put it into words. But as a kid, I didn't know how to say it. And my response to people was just not being receptive to compliments. So people, like, I was a really good basketball player in BC as a kid, right? Since grade 6, I was one of the best basketball players in the province. And when people would compliment me like that, I turned the compliments away, and it probably came across as arrogance. But now, looking back as an adult, obviously I can deal with those situations better, but I didn't hear them, because in my head, I'm thinking, I'm not trying to compete against another, if I'm in grade 7, I'm not trying to compete against another grade 7 kid. I want to get to this level of being one of the best players in the country and playing in the NCAA. So in my mind, people are comparing me to other kids my age, whereas I'm comparing myself to the top guys.
What you're just describing probably is a very small percentage of how people your age at that time would think, right? But that is the right attitude to apply that to life now and whatever, right? Because it's fair to say right now, for us to be successful as a realtor, or myself as a mortgage broker, I shouldn't be concerned about this individual mortgage broker, what they're doing, because you don't know their circumstances. You don't know if they're like, splitting deals behind the scenes and, buying business, or, working, like 100-hour work weeks, right?
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to be comfortable within your own skin and be able to apply that work ethic, and then be satisfied with the results based on your internal goals, right?
For sure.
And so if you're doing that when you're in grade 7, right, like, that's why I believe is where you are now, right? Because what you described is not where my mindset was at that age. Well, I can look back at what I was and understand that's the right attitude to have, but most people don't have that, in my personal opinion. But when you can look back on it and see where that was, that's the origins of this, the makings of a high producing, self-employed mindset. The entrepreneurial mindset is like, your standards are set by where you want to be, not what everyone else is doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And like I said, I didn't know how to articulate it as a kid, and people would actually get like negative with me because they'd say, "Oh, great game, you played so well," and I'd be like, "I missed 7 shots, and we lost by 2. You know, it was my fault that we lost." Whereas they want me to be like, "Oh yeah, you know, I did play good. I had 30 points." You know, so I was always, yeah. It was, for me, it was always this crazy goal in mind, and I'm not worried about another grade 7 kid that I'm competing against.
So my question to you is that you were like hard on yourself, yes or no?
100%. Like,
so you were hard on yourself.
ridiculous.
So my question to you is that experience, did you enjoy the basketball? Because we like, what I learned is, you probably agree with me now, is we should celebrate our successes when they come up about small, medium, large, or whatever. If there's a success, we should be able to take it in and celebrate it with our loved ones or whoever it may be. Right? So, did you enjoy your basketball experience at that age then, or?
Yes, but that's a good question, and what you say about success and celebrating, I'm under a little bit of a different perspective. I do feel like I celebrate, and you know, like every time we have a great sale, Jamie and I are walking out of a offer presentation, high five, but like tomorrow morning it's done. And for me, what I've found with myself is the losses and the failures mean a lot more to me, and I remember them a lot longer than the wins.
Interesting.
So I have nothing bad to say about my basketball career growing up. I learned so much, and I think it set me up for a successful career business wise. But I don't know. I don't think I would have changed anything. And in terms of the successes and the wins, I don't feel like I had any
When you were a young
as a
basketball
kid. Yeah.
Well, if you won the tournament or the MVP, that
But the tournament was never what I was trying to win. I was trying to win the big thing, right? So if we're talking about basketball specifically, in U17 I was on the provincial team. In my own head, maybe in others too, but I thought I was the best player in the tournament in the nationals. Going into the final, I was probably averaging like 20 points, and we played Ontario in a round robin game, and I think we beat them by 20. I guarded their best player, held them to 2, and I had 24, I think. Final, we play Ontario again. They're on the other side of the draw. And for whatever reason, I just had a weird game, and I didn't score. I played most of the game. I didn't score, and we lost by 2. And so for me as a kid, I remember that. I remember images of that game all the time in my head. And every time I do, it just like, it frustrates me a little bit because I was better than I showed in that game. But that was like one of the biggest games of my career as a kid, in high school anyway. And I didn't produce, and I just never want to have that feeling again. And so I think those little, well, that was a pretty big loss, but those losses growing up for me has just kind of fueled the fire in terms of like never wanting to be in that state ever again.
I have mentors, right? And I remember sitting down with my mentor for lunch just a little while ago, and he's like, how's business going? I'm like, fantastic. Like we're growing the company, and my personal business is on fire right now, and I'm like very, very excited. He's like, you know what? He's like, good for you. Celebrate the wins, because when the losses happen, and they probably will happen, you will not take them so hard, right? Because if you don't enjoy the wins and then the losses happen, then what are you here for, right? Because then when you have a loss, it's going to take you down so low, you won't be able to even get yourself up again, right? Because you need to experience the highs to be able to appreciate the lows and know that you want to get yourself back up to that high, right? So that's kind of like that's something that I knew internally, but I didn't. He put it into words that I understood, and I think that's something you can kind of understand when you apply it to basketball, for example.
This is one of my other philosophies. So again, I love this shit, and I love coming up with a term that actually summarizes what I'm feeling inside. And one of them is I I absolutely hate losing, but I love what it does to me. And so I think it's the way you react or use a loss. So for me, I use it as ultra motivation to never be there again, right? Whether it was losing in a national final, having a really tough first year in real estate, whatever it is. But I remember the hard situations that I've been through in great detail and don't remember much about the successes.
Really? So you block out the successes, but you kind
Because
of.
I love so much what these losses do.
So let me ask you this then. So what was your worst loss then you can recall? And like, what did you learn from it? And like, how did it put you to be where you are
In
now?
basketball, it was that national final.
Okay.
Um, I probably spent 3 days crying. Like I was a 17-year-old. I was a kid, but like still, I was so emotional about it. I thought it was going to ruin my chance at playing in the NCAA.
Which is like it's so much. I mean, isn't it sometimes so funny? The things that we think are like the biggest like end of the world scenarios are just like a. Would you agree that it was a blimp on the map of life because there was something else around the corner that's even better and it's like it's there. You're not done until you're done. Like you're not dead until you're really dead. You know.
Yeah, now it is. Now it is for sure because it taught me a lot about getting through adversity.
Right.
Um, Even after the game, I remember multiple people coming up to me, not coming up to me, but I heard it either through like blogs online or whatever, or chat lines that high school kids go on, saying like, "Oh, this kid can't perform in a big situation."
Oh, they had blogs at the time.
Oh yeah,
Jesus, that's brutal, eh?
and so again, like going back to the thing about not really caring what people said about me, I don't really hear that stuff. Like I see it and I understand it, but I just take it as like ultra motivation.
So you felt more bad about the situation because your internal pressure you put on yourself than the
100%.
blogs and all that thing. Okay,
100%.
fair enough.
Okay, let's move on. I like that though. That was great. Um, Moving from the bank as a mortgage specialist to broker.
Okay.
Run me, obviously I want to know like what made that decision for you?
Yeah.
What negative thoughts you kind of felt going through it, but like run me through that.
So I was a mortgage specialist for probably like 8 years.
Yeah.
And I totally enjoyed it. Made a good money, right? It was a good living, right? I was able to travel and have a lifestyle that I wanted, which was great. But I kind of felt like I was being capped, right? And I'll give you examples. Twitter was just coming out at the time, and I had a Twitter account, and like I had to register my Twitter account with whatever, like the RBC Twitter police or whoever it might be, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like I couldn't be the individual I wanted to be. You couldn't have your opinions, right? And it just kind of got a little bit mundane or whatnot, right? So I wanted to try something different, all right? So I went back to school, I got my MBA, and I was looking to um, parlay that into something differently, right? And that's hence why I decided to step away from the mortgage specialist role and do something else. But what I realized is you had to kind of go backwards to go forwards, and there was a lot of like levels of hoops you got to jump through to kind of get to the next level, right?
Yeah.
And so it was easier for me to kind of basically exit than to kind of like jump through the hoops. And so I ended up with another company. It was a lender within the online community, which is like a lender within the broker community, and we provided residential mortgages to brokers. So that was a great kind of like I had no aspirations at the time to be a mortgage broker, right? I just wanted something a little bit different. I wanted to be like a junior executive, and that was kind of like my trajectory at the time, right? And I think like in life, things happen for a certain reason, and so I did the BDM role, and I had a small territory, or I had a downtown territory, which was exciting, and I was selling brokers on using my company for lending. But I realized in that role is that work-life balance was difficult because you had to do a lot of traveling. I had to travel to the Okanagan. I was in Toronto for training, Toronto for conferences, and so that kind of was kind of like I didn't want to be living in a suitcase. I didn't want to be having to work my 9 to 5 and then still have to show up for 2 hours for events, right? but I did open my eyes to the broker space and, opportunities that presented itself, and to be able to speak to the lingos of the broker space, because it's a lot different than it was of the bank space, right? And so it was called incremental learning, right? So all the time is, if you continue to put yourself in new environments and do incremental learning, wonderful things will result, right? And then hence, I understood the broker space. I have formed relationships with countless number of brokers and other lenders, and familiarity breeds confidence. So
Yeah.
it gave me confidence within the broker space, right? And then exiting the lender role, and then I became a broker, right? And it's been a wonderful experience ever since, right? Because once again, I was able to kind of earn the kind of income I wanted to in my mind. You have the ability to incorporate. And when I was doing the role as a BDM, when I left the bank, it was commission plus base, right? And once again, you're in this dynamic where your success is based on other individuals and is capped, and you can't be able to kind of run and gallop the way you want, because there's kind of restrictions in terms of what you can and what you can't do. And it wasn't a fit for me. And then hence where I am now into the broker space, and it's been wonderful ever since.
Hearing more about your professional background, it seems like you had this idea going through it that you liked the corporate environment, you liked kind of the climb and moving up the ladder, but what kind of switched in your head to go into working for yourself in terms of being a private mortgage broker? And did that scare you?
That's a good question.
Was there like a significant event where you're just like, I can't do this anymore, I gotta have the flexibility and do my own thing?
Well, the reason exit from the bank was flexibility, for you to be able to like do what you wanted to do, right? And they're a big juggernaut, and how they do business is how they'll do business, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, either you fall in line and follow the system that's kind of outlaid for you, or you kind of exit and you create your own path, right? And there comes a point in the fork in the road, right? Are you going to go down this direction, or are you going to kind of like jump off the unbeaten path, which is super scary, but like also exciting because it's like untraveled, and it gives you a sense of purpose, right? Like when I was in the other job, when I exited the bank, right? I like it was Monday would roll around, and I was like internally stressed, right? Like I was like, because I would have like, it was called a deal sheet, right? And so you would see how many deals were submitted, how many deals are declined, right?
Yeah.
And as much as I was a top, BDM, my success was also based on the back end of things, right? And so they would have like 12 submissions and then 12 declines, and then that's kind of like my report card.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of like my reality, right? And that's not fun, right? And so that was kind of like another aspect of it. It's like I wasn't able to kind of influence the business the way I wanted to, right? And I said to myself, there's got to be another way of living, right? Like a lot of people live Monday to Friday, and then they wait for Saturday and Sunday to like really live, right? But like I said to myself, I didn't want to do that, right? Like I wanted to be able to enjoy a Monday just as much as I enjoy a Friday night, right? Like I enjoy a Tuesday day just as good as a Sunday day, right?
You know what I say to my friends? I say, every day's Friday.
Yeah,
I'm like, what does that mean? I'm like, well, every day's a work day for me, so I just pick Friday, and every day's Friday.
Yeah,
If I want to go out for a beer after work, I go out for a beer because it's Friday.
absolutely. Like,
Totally.
Yeah,
It's just mindset.
being self-employed gives you that ability to be able to live the lifestyle you want, right? If you wanna get that whatever, that special Rolex watch, or if you want to get that special vacation, or you want to get that Apple iPhone or whatever it may be, you just work a little bit harder and you get it, right? Like, and it's not just material things, right? It's just creating a lifestyle for you and your family or the people that you want, right? So that is something that was important to me, and it appealed to me, and hence here we are, right?
I'm glad you said that, because entrepreneurship is pretty glorified right now, especially through social media. People post obviously all the positive aspects of being self-employed, whether it's a nice car, dressing nicely, a Rolex watch, like you mentioned. But what I'm super interested in, that kind of stuff doesn't really excite me that much. But what I'm interested in is more the human side of the entrepreneur. So the ability to overcome adversity is something that I'm super excited to hear other people's experiences with. So is there something that sticks out in your head that was a big adversity that you overcame that has kind of led you to this position where you're at now?
I think anyone who's an entrepreneur who first starts out doesn't know if it's going to go the way they want it to go in their mind, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure that's your experience, that's my experience, because here I am in the business 2 years, and I'm doing well, and obviously I still have a lot more to do and grow. But if you are around to ask me when I first started, will I be there? I couldn't say for a definite yes, right? And so there's always that little self doubt that comes in there, right? And so I think that's the big thing that people have to kind of like remember is, why are you here? What is your purpose? Where do you want it to be, right? And that was kind of my experience, right?
Just getting over the mental negativity.
Getting over the mental negativity, and then figuring out, okay, so like for example, being a mortgage broker, to be successful, you need to find deals, right?
Yeah.
So you can be extremely knowledgeable and know all the rules and provide advice, but if you can't get deals, you can't be able to find clients, then you're not a good broker. Like
Fair enough.
that's the role, right? So
Yeah.
and then on top of that, you got to be able to find clients, but then you have to also convince the clients to work with you, because just because you find a solution and a good rate for them, you also have to convince them to sign the line with you, because as much as you're a good guy and you get them a good rate, there's another broker out there that's trying to do that. There's the bank that's trying to take that client from you, right? So you got to be able to close, right? There's aspects of the experience, right, that you need to touch on or have like a certain level of capability on it to be able to do it. So you need to like analyze those things and say, can I do a bare minimum, do each of these things, and then kind of hit that target, right?
Yeah. For me, just talking about like adversity and overcoming a really tough situation, my journey into being self-employed, a little bit different than yours. You kind of had the corporate ladder, whereas I right before I got into real estate, I was working at a bank as well, making $14 an hour. I had 2 other part-time jobs, so I was just like working a ton of hours, but for really no result. And I just decided I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was like, I've always thought about real estate. Now's the time. I'm 24, maybe. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I might as well take the jump now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty blind jump looking back. I wasn't really prepared financially, but going through that first year for me is just ultra motivated looking back now, knowing that I never want to be in a situation like that ever again. And so that's kind of the stuff that I want to share with other young self-employed people or people jumping into a new business, is that it's everyone kind of has that first rough year or two. And for me, it was financially, it was a big struggle. I was on, I don't know if I've ever told you this stuff, but I was on a $4 a day food budget.
That's not even possible.
For 6 months. It is possible, yeah.
So was that like Mr. Noodles?
When you buy 24 packs of Mr. Noodles, it works out to 75 cents each. When you buy 12 packs of Kraft Dinner, it works out to like $1.25 each.
Gotcha.
And everything else was just on sale. Sidekicks on sale and chunky soups on sale. Yeah, it was a grind, man.
Crazy, dude.
But you do what you got to do. And when I was pretty confident that I was going to turn a corner eventually, but like those first 6 months were tough, man.
So my experience was definitely not Kraft Dinner because I love food too much, but the best advice I got from someone when I was jumping in from mortgage specialist to account manager to mortgage specialist, and then even being a broker, was like, get those lines of credits like put together, right? Like I got my lines of credits put together, put the little cash savings as much as possible together, and then keep your expenses as low as possible, right? And the advice that I got from someone, it was, This is when at the time when everyone used fax machines, right? So it was none of the scanning stuff, right? So they're like, get the best quality scanner you can get, best quality fax machine money can buy. Don't even buy this high end desk. Don't buy a new car. Just buy a good fax machine, and just go, right?
What
And
year was this, man?
this was 2007 or
Fax
8.
machine.
Yeah, that's it was a fax machine that can like suck in like 15 pages at a time. That's I spent my money on that, and the company gave me a laptop, so that was good with there. And
Carl, when was the last time you used a fax machine?
you young
Years.
bucks, you young bucks. Yeah. So yeah, that's what it is. Get those lines of credits maxed out. And
Be more financially prepared than I was. That's what you're saying.
Be prepared, and like just kind of like, and then also to be committed, right? Like you gotta eventually have to walk off the ledge, right? And
100%. I mean, in those first 6 months, I had so many negative thoughts going through my head, but in the background, I had this weird naive confidence that I was going to make it. And whenever those thoughts came into my head of what the hell am I doing here? Like, am I ever going to sell a property? Am I ever going to actually gain any traction? It's just this weird overruling of this confident thought comes in. And then I'm like, snap out of it, you idiot. Like, go knock on more doors, go call more people. And it was just, for whatever reason, that was the way my brain worked. And I guess it kind of worked out.
And, just after you talking about what you're just saying, I think two things flash into my mind, and what made me feel like I'd be able to like walk off the ledge is like I identified two people in the company at the time. One individual was top level, right? And one person that was mid level, right? And I said to myself, I could definitely do better than that individual, the mid level guy, right? Yeah. And it's not like a elite thing or whatever. It's like it was just like, this to me is the bare minimum standard to be a mortgage specialist or whatever, right? So I was like, if I can be better than that, then that's at least a starting level, right? And then there's the goal of where I see myself wanting to be, right? Yeah. So if I said, if I can be better than this person as a minimum level, and then aim to be past this individual, then I'm a good company, right? And I think that is kind of like, you need to set standards, right? You need to kind of set the bar and then break the bar, whatever it may be, right? I think that would serve me very well to kind of like get through that adversity, right? Because there is adversity, I remember, I think I was like emailing a whole bunch of people at the time, or like I had like a small database of clients, and then someone's like, take me off your database. I was like traumatized. I was like, I'm just trying to make a living here, right? But like, it is what it is, right? People are going to be not wanting to work with you or whatever. It's going to be a wrong fit. I remember going to a client event, and I met a realtor that at the time the company didn't allow one of my client deals to be able to do that deal as a variable. They made the client choose a fixed term. Like that was the condition from credit adjudication. Okay. And then the realtor, the client wanted to do variable, and then that was potentially going to kill a deal because their realtor advised them to do variable. And so it ended up, the deal ended up going somewhere else. Long story short, a year and a half later, I ran to that realtor at a client event. I tried to go shake his hand, and he's like, you're that mortgage specialist that screwed our deal up, and he wouldn't shake my hand, and he was referencing this deal like I wronged him, right? And it was like a little bit embarrassing and a little bit traumatizing because it's like, like I took it personal, right? But, I shook it off over a few days or whatever, right? And it says like, it's not my problem, my fault, how this guy perceives the situation. I knew that I did the absolute best that I could for that client, and it is what it is, right? And so that's kind of the mentality you have to have, right? So
you're talking about setting the bar, and I make these ridiculous goals that I slightly know are unachievable, but going back to the success versus failure, I get more out of the failures. So I position myself in a way that I'm unlikely going to make it to that goal, but if I do, like, it's a big win.
Right.
So for example, year one, I did, after that rough 6 months, year one, I did 17 deals. Year
pretty
two,
good.
Better than expected. I wanted to do 8. I got my license in April 2014. So in those first like four months was rough, but then the next 5 were like, I gained some traction and actually knew what I was doing. Year two, I remember telling a buddy that my goal was to do 4 deals a month. So go from 17 to 48. And his response to me was, man, you got to make realistic goals so that you can achieve them, get close to them. And I'm like, just watch. And year two, I did 76. So I almost doubled what that goal was. But having a ridiculous goal, or what other people think is a ridiculous goal, I think just forces me to work harder.
100%. And I don't know where I heard this or read this. It was like, you need to have goals, right? And wherever it may be, because it sets the tone, right?
For sure.
And if you didn't have the goal, whatever, if you had a situation where you had no goals and you just operated without a goal and you achieve what you achieved, but if you did the exact same, if you did a goal and you would be a lot higher, right? If with no good game plan in place or no goal in place versus a goal, and you might have not achieved your goal, but just by the mere act of putting them together, you're going to be higher than if you didn't have anything at all.
Totally.
Right? I totally believe in that. And that's why, I have a personal goal for my business, and why I encourage that of my team, and why I would help design business plans for everyone in the office, because it's just like, it's annoying and it takes time, but it's like, look at the people who are trying to, like, bodybuilders, they chart their success, right? There's a reason why they do it. It's a formula, right?
It's accountability too, right? So when I pick these things, I'm holding myself accountable. I don't usually write them down. It's more just stuff in my head, and I occasionally share them with close friends or business people. But like, it's more really self-motivation for me, is saying, okay, I want to get here, and every day when I wake up, I'm thinking, how am I going to get closer to that thing, whatever it is. What am I going to do today to get closer to that thing?
It helps you focus your mind internally without you having to even realize it, right? Because if you have that goal out there, when you wake up in your first thing in the morning, your mind is subconsciously helping you align to reach this goal that you have put in place, right? Like, that's why if you were to look into my phone, like, I have like a list of to-do items, right? And it just helps you. And I actually get satisfaction from having a list of 1 to 12 and then just deleting them as I move throughout the day, right? And it helps me not have to say, okay, what do I need to do? Because that takes like maybe, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute to think about what needs to be. So that distracts you, because in that minute, you thinking what you need to do, something else comes along, right? So once you start having, this is a bigger thing, the goal, right? But once you have like a goal and a plan in place, it helps align your activities and your thinking and your mind towards working towards that trajectory, right?
So talking about, like, me setting unrealistic-ish goals just to push myself. Do you have any crazy big goals? Whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's something completely unrelated.
Yes and no. Like, I think the goals was to kind of grow a business and have a team, and I'm living my goals now, right? So I don't think anything's too impossible to do, right? And so those goals are being checked off as we speak, right?
Good for you. Love it.
Yeah.
Want to hear mine?
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. I've got a couple different strands of big goals. So one, obviously real estate related. In terms of like our team, we don't want to be a massive team. We want to be like a boutique-y team with maybe 10 agents. I don't know exactly what number it is together. Right, we have, including me and Jamie, 6.
Okay.
Last year we did 120 million in sales. We want to be 250 to 300. And I think that's achievable in the next few years. So that's not necessarily the biggest goal, but that's kind of like the real estate team goal. I want to be a developer. I want to build condos. Greater Vancouver is blowing up in the last few years, and I love architecture. I'm obsessed, and literally I'll stop on the side of the street and just look up at a building and obsess over it for minutes. And Greater Vancouver is getting better in terms of architectural design, but I want to build condos, and I want to build cool looking buildings. And then I have podcast goals too. Right. This is episode 1, so this is like ground level, Shaun, but I've got some big goals, and it's more like, for me, the reason of doing it is because I get a lot out of chatting with people like you, self-employed people that are motivated, and just kind of learning about where they've come from and how they got there. But in terms of, and I want to share my experience with other people. I've found that in the last year or so, I've been reached out to by a number of people, a couple a month usually, just asking to go for coffee. And it's usually new people into real estate because that's obviously the industry I'm in. But I've met with a couple mortgage brokers too, and they're just like, how do you get through the first year? What types of things, extra things did work for you that, nobody's telling me to do? And I love that. I'm pretty humbled to be in a position where people are asking me for advice. Not that I want to give people advice, but more just share what worked or didn't work for me. And I feel like having these conversations with people like you and others that I'm going to have on the show is just an opportunity for real people who work their ass off to share with other people and potentially help motivate them.
You hit the nail on the head about sharing. And I think one of the things that kind of resonates with me and why Bespoke was started, why I enjoy what I do, is I enjoy being a mortgage broker. I enjoy meeting clients and helping find solutions for them. I get a little bit of a high finding a complex deal and seeing their faces when I'm able to help provide financing for something that they really are excited about, which is home ownership, right? Or helping them grow their net worth. Like, to me, if I can show, like, I had a client that wanted to sell the house and then buy something. And I said to them, why do that? Why don't you turn this into a rental and then qualify for the buy? And that was something that they were never considering, right? And
Totally.
And she was pregnant at the time and she didn't think that was possible and it was a little scary. And I said to them, like, look, I can show you how to do this and it's not going to be any more difficult than what you're going through right now. And I was happy to let you know that they were able to take my advice, and then now they have a rental income generating property, which is giving them passive income. And then now they also have a home that they're living in that's also getting rental income from the basement suite. So that was a great win, right? But what gives me satisfaction and what I wasn't able to do when I was at the bank was I was able to help people. Like, I was able to be a mentor to people. I was able to show business strategies, like talking about putting a business plan together or bringing people onto the team that's like-minded, and they show me something, I'm showing them something. Like, one of the team members on my team is very good with social media, is very good at marketing herself, right? And I take a little bit something from her, and then I share my strategies and what I've been able to do to help generate business for myself, and I'm getting results from, to share it with them. And it's like it's an active advice that is in real time paying success because I'm realizing success from it. So I can help share that. I feel like a proud parent, although I am a father now, but I feel like a proud parent when there's team members on the team that are having difficult situations, that are nervous, and I say, this is what you should say, this is what you need to do for these reasons, and then they go ahead and do that, and then they close a deal, or the client comes back to them and they're able to charge a fee in a difficult situation that they didn't necessarily be able to do that, right? And so that to me is a very rewarding experience about being self-employed and being able to be a partner and grow something, right? And so that's what gets me excited in the morning, right?
For sure. For the record too, all mortgage brokers are not the same. And a story like you just shared in terms of helping someone take equity out and purchase an investment, also like the one I shared early in the day, right? Of another broker not being able to do the deal and you finding a home for it. So just want to point out the value that someone like Shaun adds to a deal. It's not just pushing paperwork across a desk to a lender. There's a lot more that goes into it.
You know what? And, I think that's something to be said too, if we can talk a little bit about the industry and what we do, is because a lot of the time is the magic happens when I'm at the office, like when I'm probably going to go home tonight and work on some files and find solutions for clients, right? And they just feel like as soon as they scan or email you their docs, then it should be an automatic approval, right? Yeah. But like, just like anything in life, like there's a lot of paperwork that has to be done behind the scenes, a lot of due diligence with the new rules and the new mortgage rules and lending requirements from B20.
Yeah.
And it takes a time, right? The underwriters need to do their due diligence, right? The underwriters are Googling the clients' names. I don't know if you guys even know that, right? But like the first thing the lender does is they're Googling the clients, or they're going on their social media, Instagram accounts to seeing what kind of a client they are. Are they being the authentic version of what their documents are saying, right? So there's a lot of things that go along when you put things together for clients that they don't realize, right? And so it's our responsibility to explain to them. I go, this is where we are at in the application process, and this is your wait time, and for these reasons, we can only do this or do that, right? And so that is our role, to be educators and advocates for the industry and help prepare our clients, because they don't know that if especially if they've probably bought one or two homes in their whole life, right? So they're not supposed to know, right? And that's why they got to come to us as experts to kind of navigate these choppy waters.
Totally. And what you just said about a lender googling a client or looking at their social media, I kind of love where technology has gone, and I love social media for that. Is that no one can hide anymore?
You know what? That's very
and
true.
I love that stuff.
Yeah, you cannot hide. Like, everything will come out eventually, right? Because you cannot exist not on social media unless it's just not impossible, right? Like, it's either through LinkedIn or through Instagram or Facebook, right? And if you say you work at Fraser Health Authority, for example, right, and you're on Facebook, you should probably have friends who are other nurses or whatever on Fraser Health Authority, and those are the things that they're looking at, right?
Totally.
So, keep your noses clean, you guys.
Totally. Quick little talk about leadership, because my roles changed as our team is growing, and I'm kind of more of a sales leader now, and I've really enjoyed, again, being able to mold and assist younger realtors in the business. With your team growing very quickly, how's your role changed in terms of leadership, and are you enjoying it, or is there lots to learn? Because I know from my perspective and in my situation, I love it. I feel like I have so much room to grow within a leadership role, but it's been a new challenge and really exciting for me in the last year.
Leadership, like my background is I have my master's in business, and we had courses, HR courses designed or specifically to talk about leadership. And there's different types of leadership. They're called the big hero leadership or top-down leadership, right? Which is where I'm the authority and you listen to everything I say and you need to do what I say, right?
Yeah.
But in 2018, especially, millennials or whatever you want to call it, right? Like, they don't gravitate towards being told what to do. They want to feel people are actually working for less. Studies have shown people are working for less money as long as the job gives them more autonomy and they feel good about what they're doing, right? And so how does that translate to where we are as brokers? Is like, when you are a leader, it has to be a form of collaboration, right? You have to have buy-in from individuals, right? And so, there's like, I had an idea of how I can coach people, right? But then it's like, you can't just, and because the information, you kind of expect them to kind of like get it, right? But you have to be respectful for the fact that people learn different ways. Some people learn by doing, some people learn by watching you, right? Or some people need to like process it themselves, right? And so you have to kind of tailor your message to those individuals, right? And many times in the office where you might be coaching someone and they don't necessarily take your word for it, right? And then they'll ask one of the other partners in the office, right? And that's just people's way of trying to figure things out, right?
For sure.
And so you don't take that personal. You just kind of like let that happen, and then even sometimes you might noticing they're going in a trajectory where they're probably wrong, but the greater learning will happen is when they make that mistake and then they learned it on their own, and then they kind of circle back and they realize what happened, and then that's when it'll finally click into place, right? Because if you're the type of leader that will just proactively jump into something before it happens, then they'll never learn, right? And you're not going to be able to grow people and their confidence, right? So you need to allow them to, I guess, fail, and then they'll succeed, right?
One of the things that I tell the realtors in our team, and I'm pretty adamant about it, is I want you to call me any time of day if you have contractual questions on how to reply to a client that you're not comfortable with what they're asking you. But I want you to call me and say, this is what I'm planning on doing.
Yes.
Not
Absolutely,
saying,
yes.
what do I do?
Yes.
So I want you to provide a solution, and then I'll give you feedback on that, rather than just saying, what do I do here?
Right, because you're like, I forgot the saying is like, teach a man to fish, right?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I'm not even gonna go there. But I think we all know the saying, right? But like at the end of the day, is you want them to be independent and learn, right?
Exactly.
And so, for example, lenders come in, right, and they do presentations, right? And so the lenders will kind of outlay what needs to be done to understand the products and services that lender, and that then a week later, a broker might have a question that applies to that lender's presentation. The first response shouldn't be, here's the answer. Were you not at the presentation? We have resources on the cloud. You need to go back to that, and then suggest to me, based on your situation, what you would do, and we can evaluate there, right? And they might be wrong, they might be right, but at least it's the first step, right? And that is something that is kind of evolved, right? Because in the beginning, you kind of want to like help them and give them a fast start or a fast jump, but it's almost like a little bit of a disservice, because then they don't feel that confidence for themselves, right? And so that's kind of like the goal is, as a good once again, in my schooling, and my mentor has said, a good leader needs to do two things. They need to develop individuals, right? And they need to clearly articulate the message.
Yeah.
So that's what a leader does. They break down the direction or the message into a format that is usable or a strategy for someone to understand, so they can execute. And then you're supposed to develop individuals. That is the sole purpose of a leader. And if you're not doing those two things, then you're doing a disservice, and you need to either exit or change your ways.
I like that a lot. I know you're a hard worker. I know there's been a big life event in your life,
right,
recently. You just had a son.
Correct, yes.
Baby number one.
His name is Ari Alexander, named after the famous Ari Gold, because he's a closer like his dad.
Yes, is he actually named after Ari Gold?
Yeah.
Dude, I fucking love that. That's awesome.
Pretty much. My wife would say he's named after Ari from The Bachelor, but he's actually named after Ari Gold, because once again, he's a closer.
That's amazing. I love that. How old is he?
2 months.
2 months, yeah. Have you, obviously that's a big life change. Right. Have you seen any difference in terms of your, obviously your priorities adjust a bit with a kid, but have you seen any differences in terms of your work ethic, or like your desire to grow your business?
I think I think anyone who's a parent who's self-employed probably would like to leave like a legacy for their families.
Yeah.
You know, even if you didn't have a kid, you would probably want to leave a legacy for your wife or whoever, your family, or whoever your loved ones.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said about, something for your kids, right?
Totally.
So there's that extra motivation factor there. And also too, you want to live a lifestyle or be the kind of individual that they're proud of. So you're going to try to do things that, they can say, hey, this is what my dad did, or this is what he's done, or this is where he's going. And so it is the extra motivation. The motivation was always there, but like now there's a extra set of eyes on you, right? So
totally.
That's there. And then also too, is you have to be more efficient with your time, right? So, I guess strategically in the back of your head, when you didn't have your kid and whatnot, you felt like you had more time to do what you need to be done, right? Yeah. But now there's a greater sense of urgency, because from 10 to 11, that's playtime with the baby, or and you can't, then you have to put time aside for the gym, and then your spouse, you need one-on-one time with my wife and your spouse or whatnot, right? So yeah. you start to learn how to segment your time a little bit more better, right?
Totally. This is something I want to ask anyone that comes on the show, is work-life balance, and what your thoughts on it. I believe work-life balance is defining your own personal happiness. So I think it's different for everyone. I feel like I'm very one-sided on it, in terms of work means a lot to me. Work makes me happy. I have some big ambitions, so work takes a priority. But what are your thoughts on work-life balance?
Like, my goal is not to like work to the point where I can't enjoy life, right? Because that's not a life, right? And so absolutely, and that's part of the reason why I became self-employed, and that's why I totally love this industry, right? Because you can have uh, a job where you can, during the daytime, you can go to the gym, right, and get a really good workout on, right, and then come back late at night and still work just as hard, and then earn a living for you and your family, but on your terms, right? And then you can be able to, a lot. I have a lot of friends, even at the bank, right, where is a calendar will go around, and you get like 2 weeks or 1 week, right, and then you were not able to book a certain week because someone that has more seniority over you, and that's fine, right? But like what I'm just trying to say is that there's another way, right? And that's what I kind of was very excited about when the self-employed, mortgage specialist role came about, right? Because I can be vacationing, and as much as my wife would be not happy because I'd be on my phone and we're out, around the world, vacationing, right? But it was just that freedom of being able to see the world, experience something different, but then still be able to earn a living, right?
Totally.
And so that is something that is like fantastic that you can never duplicate, right?
Totally. Just about wrapping up, but I have a couple just ideas like outside of business, and I describe myself as I have a very obsessive personality. So it means like when I find something I really like, I'm all in, like insane. Whether it's like a new artist and I'll just listen to an album on repeat for a month, or
you're funny, like,
or it's like a new TV show.
I'm like that as well too. So you're trying to say that the hottest song comes out, you'd have that one song on.
It's on repeat.
Yeah,
days.
A lot of people can't do that, but I'm the same way. Like if I like something, I would, I'm a big Drake fan or whatever, right? And when God's Plan came out, like I listened to that like 50 times on repeat, right?
Yeah.
But
anything, doesn't need to be music, could be like a book that you're reading or any specific interest that you have right now, or for me, fitness is a big thing that I'm obsessed with. But like, what are you currently obsessed with?
Probably my son is the first thing, right?
So that makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm obsessed with him, right? But like I think, yeah, health, right? Just living a clean, healthy life, right? Just trying to watch your diet and stuff like that, right? Um, and also too, just continuous self improvement, right?
Totally.
I love. Like, this is great. Like this conversation was wonderful. Just surround yourselves with a company of individuals that can kind of like take your game to the next level, and hearing different ways of doing business, right? I had an opportunity of working with another network, and then they had like an annual conference, right? And so I was out there, and I was very happy to be at the conference because I was able to kind of rub shoulders with other brokers and see how they carried themselves, how they did business. And they had like these breakout sessions, right? And I eagerly went there with my notepads, and I was taking notes, just learning different ways of doing business, because as mortgage brokers, we kind of like are in our own little bubbles, and we work at our offices or whatever, right? And so I'm that kind of circling back a little bit of why we started Bespoke, and why Bespoke's a little bit different is because the office is set up like a cubicle, right? Cubicle style, right? And so everyone kind of, it's like a beehive, and everyone kind of goes in there, and they come and go as they please, and they have questions or scenarios. It's like everyone can kind of like collaboratively find a solution, right? And so, that was kind of what I'm obsessed about, is like finding someone and how they do business, and having a real conversation how they do it, so then I can kind of like incorporate not all but some aspects of that to what's a fit for myself and my business, and just applying that and seeing where the results take it.
I like it. Lastly, every guest on my show is going to get to make the final statement, and whether that is a piece of advice for young entrepreneurs or people thinking about jumping into self-employment, or a philosophy that you have in your life. But Shaun, floor is yours.
That's floor is mine. It's funny, you put me in the spot there, right? But I guess on Friday, my wife and I, we went to Ellen. She was they had a conversation with Ellen.
Yeah.
She did her thing there, and I think the last piece of advice she said to the audience is like, have fun and then listen to your inner voice, right? And that resonated with me, and even now, I think we kind of talked about this in the podcast, right? But I feel is if you make decisions that you can have no regrets over, you'll be well served, because then you're living your true authentic life. And like I said, if you start from day one living a lifestyle that you have no regrets. If it goes your way, if it doesn't go your way, at least you say, at least I tried, right? Because, I think I might be jumping around here, right? But another question is, one of my younger cousins was asking me a question. It goes, and he was like, I think 16 at the time, and he said, he's still 16, right? But he was 16 or 15, and he said, well, what job should I do so I can make the most money, right? And then going along with this Ellen comment, and I said to him, I go, the advice would be not what job you should do that makes you the most money, is choose a job that you're passionate about and be the very best at that, and then the money will follow you, right? So if you live a lifestyle where you choose and you follow a direction that you're passionate about, that you enjoy, and then you have fun at it, the money will follow. The learning will be a positive experience because you're doing something that you truly love, and then all of that will flow into the right direction of where you want to be. So if that's the parting words I can say, is follow your passions, do what you enjoy, make decisions that regardless of the outcome you can live with, and then you'll be in good shape.
The way I summarize that is figure out who you are, be yourself, go all in on yourself.
Absolutely.
Love it. Shaun, man, thank you so much for being here.
My man.
I am so stoked that you're number one. We'll have to have you back on for sure.
Yeah, I would love to come back in episode number 1000. And
there you go. If people have mortgage questions or just want to chat with you, how can they reach you?
Shaun Francis, what is it? Shaun at bespokelendingsolutions.com, which is SHAUN at bespoke, BESPOKE, lending, LENDING, solutions, SOULTIONS. Shaun at bespokelendingsolutions.com, or just go to our website, and we'll go from there.
Beauty. As always, guys, I would love to hear your feedback, positive, negative. Hit me up on Instagram, denny.duma, or check the podcast notes for our email. Later.
Thanks so much. Peace out.